Welcome to the Best Business Podcast, the podcast for established marketers, entrepreneurs, and CEOs, the ones who want to join me in my mission to create 200 new multi-millionaires who solve world problems with entrepreneurship. If that's you, then this podcast was created to give you access to the tools, training, strategies, and tactics you need to achieve multiple seven-figure profits as soon as possible. This world needs the best business you can build, so please get ready, open your mind, believe you can do this, and let's build a better world together for future generations. Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always, and today we are joined by Kim Ades, the president and founder of Frame of Mind Coaching and JournalEngineTM software. Author, speaker, entrepreneur, coach, and mother of five, Kim is one of my personal heroes, as well as one of North America's top experts on performance through thought mastery. Using her unique philosophy and quirky coaching style, Kim helps her clients shift their thinking in order to yield extraordinary results and personal transformation. I've asked Kim to join us today to share her story and perhaps help some of us overcome our self-limiting beliefs and thoughts so we can go on to achieve our full potential. Kim, thank you so much for your time, for joining us today. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm great and so happy to be talking to you today.
Right? Yeah, thanks. Yay. It's a beautiful sunny day. It's still cold and snowy, but hey, who cares?
And we're in the same hood.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm West Side, but yeah, Toronto. Are we, somebody said we're Tonys. No, we're Torontarians? I don't even know. Torontonians. There we go. All right. So I got to get that right. Sorry, listeners. I'm just figuring out my identity here. But yeah, so anyways, thank you for joining us. It is a great time to be talking, and it's one of the best times in the world to be an entrepreneur, in the history of the world to be an entrepreneur. But obviously, we've just mentioned that you've got your own company and you've got some software going, and that's really commendable, especially considering that you've had 5 kids, which is amazing because I want to start a family and have like 4 to 8. So I just think that's awesome.
That's bold.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Anyways, this is your interview, not me. But I told my mom that, and she just like laughed because I think my whole life I'm like, Mom, I'm thinking of going to Japan next week. Mom, I'm going to Japan for a year. Like that's who I've always been. Mom, I'm thinking about this, and then like 2 days later, like I'm doing it, and it's not.
Wow.
It's not like little things. It's like.
So, Mom, I want to have 4 to 8 kids, and like. Are you married? Do you have a partner to share that with? Like, what does that look like at this point?
That's a really good question that I'm blushing about asking. So there is a girl. There's a girl.
But she doesn't know you.
No, she totally. What? No, she totally knows me. She totally knows me. First of all, there's a lot of women that have baby fever. Just in general, there's a ton of women that have like baby fever in general, and so that was really like shocking for me. In that sense, like women that don't have kids that just want to have kids. So 48 kids, I don't know. And that's partially why I'm interested in this interview, because I want a big family. I was an orphan. So, all right, whatever. This is still your interview, but I was an orphan. I was then adopted into a stepchild, yada, yada, yada. I've always wanted a big family, and it was only pushed out of my mind when people told me like, oh, but it's so expensive, yada, yada, yada. And now I feel like I do fairly well financially. Right. So I'm like, I could potentially afford it. Plus, I also travel a lot, and I think if I had a couple houses, one in Canada and another somewhere else, and a couple other countries I go, like the Philippines or Africa or even Canada or Japan or any of the other places I go, it would be easier in some instances because of the lower cost of living and the fact that you can get help, especially the Philippines. You can have a live-in nanny for $500 a month, $600 a month.
Right.
But the one thing that fine. Let's do this. The one thing I've always wondered though is, am I able to do that with one woman? Because this is kind of the conundrum. One, I don't want to have a broken home. I don't want broken families. I don't want the nonsense where you've got, kids with this girl and then the relationship doesn't work out and now you're with a new girl and the kids from the last relationship are like neglected because, they're like old baggage, and forgive me if that's not politically correct, but I feel like that's what I see sometimes in my friends and their relationships. Like I want a big house. I want all my kids to live with me, but I also am concerned about the women not being able to pursue their careers and goals and dreams, which is why I said you're my personal hero at the beginning of the interview, because I feel like that's really commendable. And there's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mom at all, but I feel like for me and the type of person I am, I worry that I would be able to stay intellectually stimulated by a partner who just doesn't just hangs out watching kids stories all day. Like I know what that's like. Like it's not like it's a foreign thing for me. I've done foster care, all that. So it's like if you don't have your own goals, your own ambitions, that sort of thing, I worry that I would lose interest. So it's funny. That's why I was like blushing at the beginning, because there is a girl and she only wants 2 to 3. So we're talking about creative ways to have the rest of the children, because she's got career goals and ambitions and stuff. So that's, again, why I said you're my personal hero, because I'm curious about how do you do it? How do you find time, the
Okay,
struggle?
so let me kind of share a little bit about my story, and then we'll talk about all those things that you brought up, because it's jam-packed with lots of things to discuss. How's that?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay.
It's going to be
So
a
first
3-hour
of all,
interview.
so I have 5 kids. I didn't give birth to all 5 kids. Okay, so let's clear that up from the get-go. I was married, I had 2 kids, and I got divorced, and then I got remarried to a man who had full custody of his 3 kids. So I have a boy and a girl, and he has 3 boys. And at the time when we met, my youngest was 9, and his oldest was 14.
Wow. Okay.
So right away, we all lived in one house together. So we had to orchestrate, living arrangements, who's sleeping where, and all that kind of stuff. There was also, the issue of, kids at that age, they have a little bit of ownership over their stuff, and there were maybe a little bit of power wars, but they're very minor. And so the question is, how do you blend 2 families together? And how do you suddenly step into, the word stepmom? It's not, what is stepmom? Step in, step over, step aside, step up, right? Step. So step has a lot of connotation. And so how do you make it all work when there are other parents involved, sort of, kind of, right? So sort of, kind of, but they're here permanently and here's their residence. So for me personally, one of the things that happened that went really, really well was, at first I thought my husband was a little nuts. He would insist that we travel together. So that's 7 people in one car. Like if we went for dinner, let's say at his mom's house that was 15 minutes away, I'd say, okay, you know what? I'll just meet you there. He's like, no, we're a family. We travel together.
Love that. Yep.
And I thought he was just being, let's call it, controlling, but that's not what it was, or maybe it was. But what it ended up happening was we learned to call ourselves a family. We learned to operate as a family. We learned where to sit in the car, right? Because they want the better seat. And so at the beginning, they would, shotgun, I want right side.
Right. It's a fun thing now.
Right. But so then we learned everybody has their seat, and everybody doesn't fight about which seat they go in. And so this kind of thing, let's call it, we created a lot of traditions, really created a bond, made us feel like a family. One of the things we did early on is we went to we found a personal trainer who trains families. Now, we didn't last very long, admittedly, but something he did early on was really, really powerful and has lasted over the years. He said, bring a journal with you. So we brought a journal, and he said, one thing that I want you to do is find a name for your team. Right. You're a team. What's the team? So now my husband's name is Friedman. My name is Ades. And my kids, who take the name from their father, are Kotliar with a K. So we decided to call ourselves Team Facts. So what we learned is that when we put things in place where the kids can depend on it, there's regularity that forms an expectation where they just say, okay, we're a family. Maybe we don't always like each other every minute of the day.
Right.
Maybe we don't always like what the other person is doing every minute of the day, but we're a family, and that's how it is.
Right.
It's just, that's the way it is.
Right. I like that.
A huge part of how do you handle all the family things is to put some, I don't want to say rigid structure, but put some. It is
structure, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not a rigid person. I'm the opposite of rigid. I hate rules and regulations. That's just who I am. But put some structure in place where they look forward to it, whatever it is. Friday night dinner. One of the things we do every year is we celebrate Family Day together. It's a big deal here in Toronto. Like this year, now they're older, we took them knife throwing. So do something every year. Like, we just have traditions, and those traditions are really, really important to keeping the family together. Now, as for being a mother and working, everybody's different, right? So for me personally, if I wasn't working, I'd go mental, right? Like, it would just be a very hard life for me. And it's not that I would be bored, but I would not feel really good about myself. And I need that stimulation.
You need the growth, right? You're capable of so much more, yeah.
And so the question is, can I be a great mom and work? I think that I'm a much
Yes.
better mom when I work.
Right.
Because it, I mean, I remember giving birth to my first son, and all of a sudden I'm like home with this child, and I'm thinking to myself, what do I do now?
Right.
Like, what the heck just happened?
Right.
It was a huge culture shock. And so for me, working allows me to come back to the house really vibrant and invigorated
Hmm.
and engaged and able to really give them my full attention because I'm full, I'm filled up. If I'm empty, there's nothing for me to give.
No, I agree 1,000%. I did a great interview. Listeners may want to check out as well with Alex Sheffrin about the entrepreneurial personality type. And what I liked about that interview so much is the whole entrepreneurial personality type thing is that we are momentum-based beings. And so happy, sad, upset, angry. He's like, entrepreneurs don't really associate with those. They just understand momentum and lack of momentum. And if there's momentum, then there are all those positive things. If there's lack of momentum, there's the opposite. And you just described that perfectly. You're like, I'm home, I've got this child, and I've got no momentum. And like what? And
Exactly.
you're like, when I can go to work and I feel like there's progress and there's things are happening and I'm able to
Yeah.
produce, you got momentum, you're happy. So that just spoke really well to that. And I think that's fantastic. And I think it does because you're interacting with other people, you're learning other things. I mean, it's stimulation. They've done all sorts of studies. Like we crave stimulation, we crave variety, we crave that.
Yeah.
So for you to go out and learn something new, and it could even be the most random thing, like someone you talk to while pumping gas. But because
Right.
you were doing something new and different, you had that meeting. I've had this chance, like people have said things to me in passing that have been like huge eye openers or aha moments, and it was like a fleeting moment, just crossing paths. And so you get that inspiration, whereas you wouldn't if you were just stuck at home watching daytime TV and drama.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
and so
that's a bit of a cliche right there, right? Like stay-at-home mothers can still be stimulated, but it's not for everybody.
right.
And the key is that whoever you are, whether you're a stay-at-home mother or a working mother, your job for your children is to really take care of your wellness. Make sure you're healthy, whether it's physically, mentally, intellectually, whatever. Make sure you're healthy. So can you stay at home and be healthy? Of course you can.
Right. Of
Could
course you
I?
can.
No, I couldn't. Right? So, and everybody's different. And so the idea is that there isn't one blanket formula for everybody. Everybody needs to take care of themselves in their own way. So for you, let's say eventually you get married, your desire is to be in a healthy relationship with a healthy other partner, a healthy person. And when they show up healthy, whether they're staying at home or not, that's not the relevant piece. The relevant piece is, are they in this relationship feeling good? If not, something needs to shift.
Right.
If they're in this relationship feeling bad, then they have to say, what's going to help me feel better?
Right.
But if they're perfectly happy at home and they are engaged and you come home with things to talk about and they're interested in that and they have things to talk about, that don't assume that just because they're at-home moms that they watch soap operas. Like, that's just not a fair statement.
No. And that's
Right?
I'm a laptop entrepreneur, so I work from home. And actually,
Right.
the girl that I'm talking to, she's as well. So I didn't necessarily say
Yeah.
at home, but at home watching
Right.
dramas versus at home at your home office or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
but
Because I think
so-
there's two different mentalities. Because you can have the same person in the same situation, they approach it differently.
Exactly. So you want to make sure you're with someone who understands, look, in order for me to have a healthy relationship, I've got to show up healthy.
Right.
That's the really key, most important piece of it.
Very well said. So how did you even get started into all this? Long before you became a thought expert and able to just, coach people so well and have such good insight, how did you get started?
Well, I think that, ever since I was young, I probably had some pretty good instincts. I was the kind of teenager where everybody came and asked for advice because I was kind of neutral and open and really accepting and all that kind of good stuff. But so what happened to me so I told you I was married and then got divorced. In that first marriage, I owned a business with my ex-husband, and we used to build simulation-based assessments. And the purpose of those assessments was to help companies make better hiring decisions. And so we're already very much involved in, how do you figure out who the best performer is going to be? regardless of the role, regardless of the position, regardless of the industry. And so we tested hundreds of thousands of people. And one of the things that we discovered, we were looking at IQ, we were looking at skill sets, we were looking at personality traits, and we discovered that across all industries, across all positions, there was one key indicator of top performance that really, really stood out, that was consistent.
It was
and
mindset.
That was, well, it wasn't called mindset because, it was hard to evaluate mindset, but we were looking for what is their level of emotional resilience? So what is that? That is, how quickly, how able is a person to bounce back from adversity when something bad happens? Right? So what is that? Something hits you, whatever it is, something negative happens. How long do you stay down for? And then on top of that, when something bad happens, what do you do with it? So those people with a high degree of emotional resilience, not only do they get up fast, they leverage their adversity. They do something, they turn it into an advantage. So that's kind of historically where I come from. And, obviously my marriage didn't last and I ended up selling my shares and moving on. But that piece of information always stayed with me. And the question is, how do we really help people succeed? Is it by building their skills? Well, there's a million people out there that could help you with skill development. But if I could really help people build their emotional resilience, now I'm onto something really big. And so that's where Frame of Mind coaching was born, from this idea that the way people think will determine what they achieve. And the way people think is really an indicator or reflection of their emotional resilience.
That's a great statement. That's a great point because, and I've learned something similar in martial arts, and just that if someone's standing in front of you, if you push their head, their whole body follows. Like, it's really hard for someone to stand up straight and keep their balance if you push their head backwards or you push their head to left or right. You can do it to their arm, you can do it to a leg, and they'll stay in the same spot. But if you push their head, the whole rest of the body goes. And so it's like where your focus goes, the mind or the body, your feet follow type
Exactly.
thing. And so I think that's just such, like, it's almost like you said, like on the emotional resiliency part. If something bad happens, there's, they always say there's silver lining, and the power of positive thinking, it's not that. Jim Rohn says is great. He's like, it's not that there are no weeds. There are no weeds. It's like, if you do that, we have to haul you off to the crazy farm because the weeds are going to take over your garden. It's what do you focus on in a given situation? I love that because if there's, you can focus on the things you don't want or focus on what you want and just keep your focus on getting there. And I think that, like, even when a homing missile is fired, homing missiles don't go in straight lines. They're constantly course correcting, and it's because they're constantly focusing on homing in on where their big goal is. And as they get closer, they're making more adjustments quicker because it's the trajectory. But anyways, that's the whole point, is just like you said, the emotional resiliency. How much can you avoid distractions, stop being distracted by things that have nothing to do with your goals?
Well, that's part of it. 100%. That's the focus part. But emotional resiliency usually refers to the idea of how do you handle it when something bad comes your way? What do you do with that? How do you interpret that negative event? How do you turn it into something really, really positive? How do you turn it into something that's an advantage? So it's not just about, not getting distracted, although that's part of it. In other words, how do you I'll give you an example. I just came back from a vacation with a friend, and a really close friend, grew up with her for years and years and years. And, we were at the beach, and suddenly a family came with kids, and the kids were playing, screaming, yelling, whatever. And it really bothered her, right? Like the noise just got to her, and I didn't even notice. So it's not how do you prevent yourself from letting distraction get in your way, but how do you allow yourself to be around chaos when it's around you and be okay with it? How do you be at peace when the world isn't always peaceful?
I always thought of that when I see like a dog or an animal that's got like 7 kids like crawling on it and chewing on it, and the mom's just like laying there.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I was like, how do you, like, you're being gnawed on in 8 different places. How does that not doesn't?
Right.
Yeah. So how do you do that? Is that like a Zen thing?
It's that well, going back to being a parent, 5 kids, 5 different personalities, 5 different goals, dreams, desires, requirements, and they all need your attention. So how do you be in that?
Mm-hmm.
right? And not feel like, oh my God, I have no time for myself or whatever. You just be in that. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, like one of the big things people ask me, how do you balance everything? This question of balance. Right? You might
Mm-hmm.
have that question. You're a mom, you're an entrepreneur. I'm a daughter with parents who are aging and struggling, et cetera. How do you balance it all? And here's my answer to that. Like, imagine you're in a park. I don't know. Do you remember when you were a kid, you went on a seesaw?
Yep.
So what happens when your seesaw is in complete balance?
No one's on it.
Or no, you're on it,
Well,
right?
you're both standing, I guess. If you're in, well, what
Well,
do you mean? Complete balance? Because as in like
you're
level or what?
yeah,
Like
complete balance. You're on one side, your friend is on the other side, and the seesaw's in complete balance. What's happening?
you're equal weight. You're both standing.
Nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening,
Okay.
right? There's no movement.
Right.
Nothing's happening. And so people ask me, how do you find balance? And I'm like, I'm not after balance. I don't like it when nothing happens.
Right.
Right? Like that's not really what I'm after. What
Right.
I'm really after is a high degree of engagement. So the idea of being where you are. Right?
Mm.
So if I'm on the beach, I'm going to enjoy the beach. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to one of my kids, I'm going to be as focused as I can possibly be. If I'm on this call, nothing else is going on. I don't know if you can see, but my arms are moving.
Right.
And I'm talking to you with a lot of enthusiasm and passion because I'm focused here.
Right. Right.
Right? And so
Being present.
be where you are.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the answer. It's not, don't go for balance, go for presence.
Yep.
Go for engagement.
I love that, and I especially love that because I think balance is from as like a misconception that life is supposed to be without struggle. Life is all about chaos and struggle, and that's it. Like, I mean, planets were smashing and like whatever you believe, like strife and chaos is what life is about. It's constant change. It's a refinement. It's about friction. It's constant refinement. Life is competition, especially on a biological level.
Well,
Life is
let's look at
competition.
it a bit differently, okay? Life is struggle. It doesn't have to be struggle. It's kind of like you can let's take it like this. Go to an amusement park, go on a roller coaster. Some people white knuckle it, right? It's a struggle. It's scary. It's terrifying.
Right.
It makes them nauseous. They puke over the side, right? That's one way of doing it.
Right.
Another way of doing it is to like let go and scream and yell and have the greatest time ever.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So choose how you're going to do this.
Right. Yep. I agree.
So it doesn't have to be a struggle. It can be a ride.
True. It's a musical thing. You're supposed to sing and dance while the music is playing.
Well, you can. You don't have to, but there are options. Right?
Well, yeah, and then you get to try to determine how you want to live this life as well. Like that's it. That's your choice. You can choose to see it half full or half empty.
Well, why half?
Why half? Well, I think
Why
it's
half?
just the expression. So is
Yeah,
the glass
it's
is full
also-
or empty? There, okay.
Well, it has water in it or it doesn't. Like, period.
True. Very, very true.
Right?
So, yeah, no, I agree. I agree 1,000%. I definitely do. And I think the mindset you come is a huge component of it, especially having trained with professional athletes and Olympic world champions, Olympic medalists. I think it makes a huge difference, the mindset that you have. And like you said, if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to stick with it. You're just going to go from thing to thing to thing. You're going to give up in it really quickly. In fact, if you look at any endeavor, it's almost always a pyramid where the largest group of people are the newcomers. And it's like the people who have seniority, they're the fewest because people, they drop off for whatever reason, either because they're just not passionate about it. They don't really, it's not connected to their inner soul. It's not connected into their kind of the reason for existence. Or it's like you said there, like it's too much of a struggle or a fight and they get fatigued or tired. You can't walk around crouched all day. You're
No.
right?
It's going to hurt.
Exactly. And so if you're faking it, it's not sustainable.
Well, you use the example of like an Olympic athlete or an Olympic champion, but think about that. Imagine you're an Olympic athlete and you get to the starting line and you think in the back of your mind, gee, I don't know if I'm going to win. I don't know. Look at that guy beside me. He looks so much better than me. Like you're already losing before you start, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the mind game, your mental set for any game will determine whether you win or lose.
Yep. Oh yeah, hands down.
Period. Right?
Hands down, thousandfold.
Right.
Again, going back to martial arts, I mean, this is the whole ninjutsu. Ninjutsu is like a third mental, like it's all that's a mind game. Using people to pass, like using 6 degrees of separation to get messages to your enemies, and this is them for like put in doubt and fear and all that and misinformation. That's always been one. But I've seen people lose matches like before they even start. You just look at them and they like the guys look at each other and you can just tell that one guy's already cowering. Like,
Right.
and so it's that mindset. It's huge. And again, it's how you approach it. That goes back to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, like
Yep.
that desire and belief. Like if you, like mothers have lifted cars to save their children. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's like they could never do that ever in their life beforehand, but they just believed and they committed to it. So, I mean, the Wright brothers invented flight. Do you know how crazy that is? Like that's like me
Crazy.
telling you I'm gonna grab my ear and I'm gonna rip it off and peel my skin down to my ankle and step out and look 10 years younger. People be like, that's absolutely absurd. Like that's the level that they were taught. Like we're gonna fly. People are like,
Yeah, we're
right.
going to go to the moon.
Right. Yeah. Other people are like, not realistic. If I went back 15 years and said, hey, I'm going to open up a portal in my hand and I'm going to look and see someone face to face on the other side of the planet, we're going to talk in real time, they'd be like, that's impossible. Well, guess what? I have a smartphone. I can do that now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that. And that's the mindset. It's the mentality. It's the commitment. It's the willingness. It's only impossible until you do it. Then everyone's doing it. 4-minute mile was impossible until somebody did it.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, I love that. So what have been some of your greatest challenges for you in your career?
In my career, well, for me, again, I owned a company with my ex-husband, and when I sold my shares, I had to figure out what am I going to do next.
Right.
A lot of people really, really identify with their work, with their business.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my greatest lessons is I am not my work. I am not my business. It doesn't define me. I'm separate from that. That was a major challenge for me, just to learn that, what I do isn't who I am. So that was a big challenge. The other kind of more tactical challenge was when I first started my coaching business. One of the things that I do when I coach people is I ask them to journal in an online journal every single day with their coach. So I have a team of coaches. And at the beginning, I didn't have a special place for them to journal. I used Blogger.
Right.
Okay, this was going on for, let's say, a year or something. And one of my clients journaled about his wife, and he said some pretty harsh things about her. And she happened to be pretty good at technology and hacked into his account and read his journal. And oh my God, I was horrified. I thought my entire business just went out the window. Like, this was a reputation issue, right? Because it's his private stuff. And, at that day, I just remember feeling my heart go into my stomach, right? And I thought, man, it's over.
It's over, right.
It's over. And what I decided to do was create my own piece of software that would allow people to journal privately with their coach in a way where it was completely secure, like bank level security. And so that's when I built this thing called Journal Engine. But again, when you have something bad that happens, what do you do with it? How do you understand that it could be an opportunity?
Right. Well, and a lot of times it's feedback, right? Like, especially even in your body, people can, like, when someone has pain doing something, like, oh, and they never do it again. Well, no, that's feedback. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means you got to be more aware as you do it. It's a warning alarm. People can be afraid of feedback a lot of times, but that's how I always say movement over meditation. It's the one thing a monk will never tell you. That movement is better than meditation. You can meditate on something all day, but until you get up and do it and get some feedback, you don't know whether you're right or wrong. And so even if you get negative feedback, okay, great, I'm sorry, let's fix it, let's move forward. I think that a lot of people have fixed mindsets where they think that single events define them or their lives or their potential or everything else, whereas I think more people need to have growth mindsets where it's not that, you are not a single incident, and it's okay to do something wrong because you can try to make it up to the person, or even if they're not willing to accept your apology, I'm sorry. So then friendships need to be sacrificed in the progress of development because, it's just about getting to the goal. It's not an ends justify the means. I don't quite mean that. But it's about just constant improvement and refinement and waking up every day. And I think that's a great example of having done that. So you took a problem. At first I thought that was going to be like, and it turned out to be great. His wife read it and it brought them close together. And
Nope.
No, yeah.
They're divorced now.
Some things you shouldn't, some things you should keep to yourself. You don't have anything nice to say.
Divorced and remarried.
Well, that's
Yeah.
maybe it's for the better for them, but
Yeah, but you know what? I just want to tell you, as you were talking about the concept of feedback, I wrote it down because we know the idea that, okay, so you make a mistake and you learn from your mistake. People always say that, learn from your mistakes, but nobody's ever called it exactly how you have. Use the feedback and adjust your movement. So you're onto something there in terms of your positioning. I'm just letting you know.
oh,
You should
sweet.
you should write that down.
Okay.
Do something with that.
Okay. Got
And
it.
if you don't, I will. So,
Well, I mentioned that on these interviews a lot, but you're right. You should do something with that. But I think it's a valuable thing. Again, it's just feedback. And people said you can't fail unless you give up. That's really, you can't fail unless you give up. You're constantly in progress. And it's about the journey anyways. I feel like so many people, Alan Watts is a great philosopher and I love his stuff. I've traveled a lot, studied a lot of the world's religions. He did way more in depth than I did, and I feel like he very much emulates my beliefs on things. And he's like, everyone is running around scurrying. Everyone's scurrying around as if there's something more to achieve other than just being who you are. Like,
exactly.
like that's like this is it. Like, hey, this is it. This is the song. Time to dance. Like this is it. Like there's this, and then there's death. Like what like
Yeah.
that's it. So go. like,
Right. People are always thinking that this isn't enough. There's got to be something more.
Yeah.
And they're searching, searching, searching. And in your search, you're not really aware of where you currently are.
Right. You're not present.
Right.
Like
this place isn't enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the moment you turn it into enough, more than enough, right? In the moment you turn this moment into the moment,
Yep.
is when you start to really be alive, when you start to really live.
Yep. I agree. It's good to have goals and to chase a destination, and it's great to have accomplished things. Like obviously, I've been poor in my life, and I've made what some consider to be very large sums of money. And obviously, it's funner to have money and to be able to do things. It's just because it enables you to do more. It itself is nothing. It's just inert. But at the same time, I still love, like, that's part of why I got here. Like I remember when I got my first big commission check off of a campaign that I'd done. In some instances, it was more money than I made in a year, probably a few years combined. And that day, like, there was no, like, it was a great feel good, but my life didn't change. Like, there was no drastic change. I still did what I did. Like, I think I bought a pair of shoes, I bought a smoothie, and I went on a date that I had already planned. Like, that was it. Like, and the shoes I bought, I got at Ralph's, which is like a secondhand, it's like the Value Village, or not Ralph's,
Yeah.
what was it? It was like a secondhand, it was like the Value Village of where I was in Encinitas, California. It was like their Value Village. Like, it was like I got big feet. I'm like size 13, 14. And I was like, hey, they got some sweet shoes. They were like $20. So I spent, I made this big check, and that was it. Like, because it's the, like Jim Rohn even says this, like, it's about who you be. It's success isn't something you chase. It's like a butterfly. You can't catch it. It's something you attract by who you become. And so I always say this, like, when someone goes and wins the world championship at something, they didn't become world championship at that event. They already were when they showed up. That's just when everyone else found out. That's because it's about who you are in the day-to-day. All the world's most successful people, everybody, we only have 24 hours a day. It's how do you use your time? Do you squander it? Do you sleep in till 3 in the afternoon and then wake up and complain about why you don't have money? Well, maybe if you didn't sleep all day and it's just this world is, there's levers, there's things you can pull, like, oh, my health isn't good. Well, if I do these activities, that will go up. I always like to say that like where your focus goes, things grow. And when you wake up, if you sleep 8 hours and you have $16, we'll say, $16 in your growth bank account to spend throughout the day to grow whatever part of your life you want. And if you spend 4 of those in a video game, then you've basically spent 4. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's luxury and something you enjoy, then I feel like people have health, wealth, love, happiness, and then survival skills that they need to work on. And if that's a happiness thing, then all right, you spent $4 into your happiness bucket. But did you spend anything in any of the other areas? Oh, well, I played 4 hours of video games, and I spent 4 watching TV, and and I just think people aren't aware of what they're doing, and that's where people like you can really help them, because they might not even notice that they're
Well, here's the thing. Like you described a person who might sleep in until 3, right? Or you described a person who's complaining about their health, but they're not doing anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's a great example because how many people are in a situation where they'd like to lose weight and maybe they start doing something about it, but for whatever reason, it's not sustainable. The question is why? Like, why don't people do what they know they need to do? Because something gets in their way. And that has to do with their thinking. And that's exactly the work we do with people is what is it about your thinking that's preventing you from doing the stuff that you think you need to do in order to reach your goals? Right? Like what's really getting in the way? And so a lot of people say, well, I know what to do, and they jump into action, and then they wonder why they can't keep doing the action because they're not really addressing that one big, it's not even an elephant in the room because it's so deeply hidden, right? So what is that one thing that's really preventing you from taking consistent action that will lead you to the outcomes you're looking for? What's really getting in the way?
Right.
And what we try to do when we coach people is we dig underneath and we find out what is it that's getting in your way and we move it out of the way. Right? Because it's not enough for you to say, hey, stop sleeping in. Well, what's causing you to sleep in the first place? There's a lot there, right? I'm tired. Why are you tired? Well, because I wake up and what do I have to do? Where do I have to go? What kind of life do I live? And there's a whole big story attached to that. It's not enough to just say, wake up earlier, because they can't get it done. At least they can't get it done consistently.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Because there's mindset, and that's such a big part of it. It's such a, like people, you can self-sabotage yourself without even, again, if you don't feel like you're worthy, if that's why you're, you know what I mean? Or if you're.
Yeah, there's something else going on. And if you don't address that something else going on, you can, try your hardest to do all the right things and it still won't work. So this is the issue. It's not so much about doing. It's really about understanding how your mind works and how your mind actually, you said something earlier, if I move your head, your whole body follows.
Yep.
It's about how your mind actually leads the game.
Yep.
And if you don't address what's going on there, then you're playing the game unconsciously. You're kind of being blindfolded.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's like if you refuse, it's the same thing where your focus goes, wherever you look, you go in that direction. Wherever your focus goes, your feet will follow. Well, if there's a part of your life that you're ignoring or not looking at, then and if that's like, it's almost like a staircase. If it's not like a straight staircase, if a step is leaning to the, on the left side, like when you climb in the woods, or you're hiking, and sometimes you got to take a big step left and a big step right because it's not a built staircase.
Yeah.
If that right step to climb up and get where you need to is in that area that you're not willing to focus on, you'll never get past it because you won't. Yep. So you said for you, your self-worth and having it attached to your job. What you did was a big challenge. What other challenges did you have to overcome?
Oh, gosh. For me, I mean, understanding where to spend my money, understanding what kind of investments to make, understanding where to spend money for marketing, like what, should I hire someone? Should I put in an ad somewhere? Like, where do you spend your money and get the biggest return on that investment? I think that's an ongoing kind of challenge that entrepreneurs have, which is how do I know what investment to make? How do I know which project to focus on? How do I know what marketing dollars to spend? How do I know who to partner with? How do I know who to hire? It's really about how do I know how to use my resources effectively so that I'm getting a really big return on my investment. I think that's an ongoing challenge that people have when they're in business.
So what was some of the best advice you ever got for those?
Best advice was, if there's something that doesn't feel right, just don't do it. Like, it's okay not to take action, which is kind of surprising, right? The other, not piece of advice I got, but the piece of advice I give is experiment. So you can try things on a smaller scale before jumping all the way in. And, when I started Frame of Mind Coaching, I didn't really know how it was going to work out. So what I did is I reached out to a friend of mine who happened to be a VP at Royal LePage, which is one of the largest national real estate companies in Canada. And I said, I have this idea to coach people, but I need people to coach. She said, I have people to coach. And I, of course, knew that. And and I said, well, would you be open to running a pilot? And a pilot means that, we're sending out the information. People are signing up for a pilot, understanding it's in in a
Beta mode,
stage of
yeah.
experimentation. So people are really forgiving when you make mistakes during a pilot. And so I ran 1 or 2 pilots before I said, okay, I got it now. So test things out,
Yep.
Test out your ideas. I'm a big experimenter. And I think that's one of the things that reduces risk over time and allows you to know if you're heading in the right direction. Because, and I'm going to use your term, when you run pilots, you get valuable feedback. And that helps you hone what you're doing, change what you're doing, or just keep going in the right direction.
Yeah. And gets you proven case studies and testimonials, which is important because what you say about what you do, people always take with a grain of salt because, of course, you're going to be biased. But what other people say about you and what you do speaks volumes. So,
I remember one of my first ever coaching clients. Like at first I started to coach groups, and then I the first guy I ever coached one-on-one, and I wasn't sure, like, can I actually coach just one-on-one, or is that too, like, what's that going to be like for me? But I remember he would say to me after every call or during every call, I hate you. And which would mean, man, we've hit on something really important. Like we're knocking it out of the park right now. I hate you. And
like you're making me focus on something that I don't want.
Like you're really you're hitting a really meaningful spot right now. And so every time he would say, I hate you, I thought in the back of my head, man, I'm a good coach. And so, the feedback you get that way is really important. But as it turns out, he's still with me, and he's one of my leading coaches.
Wow.
And that was like 11 years ago.
Wow.
So I was that good way back then.
Yeah, I think there's a benefit too, because in the pilots and the betas, people get more hand-holding, more attention, because you're more invested as well. So there's a trade-off there, right? They're willing to put up with hiccups, and at the same point in time, they get kind of more involved. Yeah. And then when they become part of it, just like this guy, when someone's a part of something, they want to see it be successful.
Exactly.
So, yeah, those are great answers. So now, do you feel like there's any habits that you feel that some of your best clients have when they come to you? Because everyone can be, like, none of us are perfect. I'm definitely not perfect. I don't know about anyone listening to this call. But do you feel like there's certain... Well, my mom says I'm perfect, but, her opinion is a little biased.
Right.
So do you feel like there's any habits that you feel like your most successful clients share? Things that even if they're not perfect, that help them overcome those obstacles?
Well, for me, again, I go back to the concept of journaling. I ask my clients to journal so they pick up the habit of journaling. But what is journaling really about? It's really about self-correction. It's about, we go off track, we lose our way, we get distracted, and journaling is about reminding us where we were headed. And it's about really course correction, right? Putting us back towards the things that we wanted. So those people who are super successful, they journal on a regular basis, but they also take their own personal development. They make that a priority. Right? So this is not, it's kind of like people who are super healthy exercise all the time. They don't only exercise for a month or a year. It's a lifelong experience.
Right.
And so people who are really mentally strong are people who do the work every day.
Yep.
Right? So it's the same idea.
Yeah, I actually do that. And obviously I don't know your system at all or too well, but I love that. And that's something that's been really beneficial for me, is just keeping it like I do a weekly goal tracking, like journal basically, where I think about my career, my finances, family, friends, business relationships, my love life, my health, dreams, any problems, any charitable endeavors I want to take on, my current happiness level, what my biggest concern is. I always put that down as well. And just by week after week, if I keep putting the same thing on there and nothing's happening, it's like I need to do something about that. Whereas if I didn't, years would go by, and it's just...
Again, I need to do something about it, but if the same thing shows up over and over again, the question is why?
Why not?
So it's not always what you do about it. You may have tried to do something about it many times over, but there's something else happening, or there's something else at play that you may not even be aware of that's interfering with your ability to get it done.
Right.
So that's where journaling comes into play. You notice the patterns, but there are all kinds of different ways to journal so that you're digging at and really unearthing some of the key. Hey, can I give people a journaling exercise?
Let's do it.
Okay?
Let's do it.
Okay. So this is an exercise that I give my clients. It's extremely powerful. Honestly, it's a really great starting point. So guys, grab a piece of paper and a pen and write it down.
Boom.
So question number 1 is, what do you really, really want? What do I really, really want? So why are there 2 reallys there? Because it's not what somebody else wants for you, or not what's expected of you, or not what you think you want because that's what you're supposed to want, but what does your heart really, really want? What do you truly want?
Right.
Question number 2 is, why do you want it? Like, how would your life be impacted if you had it? And if you never had it, would that be okay with you? Could you live like that? And thing number 3 is, so what's getting in the way? Why don't you currently have what you really, really want? And list all the reasons. Now, once you list all the reasons, those reasons become the starting point for understanding the beliefs that are getting in your way and really tripping you up. That's the point where we start to do the work. Now, for anyone who's really bold and really courageous, send me your responses and I will connect you with one of my coaches who will examine what you wrote and do a really deep dive with you and looking at what's getting in the way. And
That's
here,
awesome.
my email address is kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. Now, most of you won't do that. I don't come across a lot of really bold people. But for those of you who want to take my challenge, go ahead.
That's awesome. So let's go over. So first it was Kim at
frameofmindcoaching.com.
Perfect. And the questions were, what do you really, really want?
Yep.
Why do you want it? And there's some sub kind of questions there, like, would you be okay with not getting it? How will getting it impact your life?
Exactly.
And then the last one was, what's in your way?
Why don't you have it now? What's getting in your way? What's standing in your way of having what you really want right now?
Why don't you have it now? So, all right. So what do you really, really, so here we want this journaling exercise. Everyone listening to this, I always say, at the end of the call, I always ask people to, about their notes and action items. So my listeners, my loyal fans should already have a pen and paper handy for someone to take notes. So what do you really, really want? Why do you want it? And why don't you have it now? And then send that to Kim at, hold on, I'm going to get it. Hold on. Kim at frameofmindcoaching.com.
Yep.
Perfect. That's awesome. So it is a really powerful exercise, because a lot of times people can have anything they want. But I mean, again, as humans, we've done phenomenal things. We've put people on the moon. We invented flight. We're growing ears. We're growing organs. Like, we're growing organs on other animals. Like, do you know how weird that is?
Crazy.
Right?
So here's the thing with that assignment. So there are layers. Okay. So layer 1 is just doing the assignment provides, all of a sudden you're seeing yourself in ways you haven't seen before.
Right.
Then connecting with a coach who will review it with you and really kind of do a very deep dive on that will help you understand it at a level you've never seen before. So you'll gain some really valuable insights. And then more than that, you'll start to understand what you need to do, the things you need to work on in order to have what you really want. So it's those 3 layers.
Now, do you have any quick tips for people to help improve their emotional resiliency? We talked about that, and we talked about why it's so important, but I don't know if we mentioned any good action items for people to do with that. If they've been hit with something, if someone listening to this is going through something right now, do you have any tips for them if someone's really struggling?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and nobody's ever asked it before. So I'm going to give you another exercise, okay? So let's say something bad happened to you, whatever it was. You had a divorce, or you had to go bankrupt, or you, I don't know, got bullied as a kid, whatever it is. Doesn't really matter. What I want you to do is write down the story. Like, what happened? Who was involved? What happened to you? How did you respond? And then what I want you to say is, like, how did this impact me? How does it affect me now? So writing the story of what happened and how that story kind of still lives within you currently is a very good starting point. But then you want to go back and reread it and say, so how do I want this to impact me now? So the story I tell about it and the story I hold on to, does that serve me? Does that have value to me? Or does that actually hold me back? Does that hurt me? Does that create fear for me? Does that create anxiety? Does that make me scared? Does that make me really motivated, or does that make me gun shy? What does it do to me, the story I tell about that past event? And what is the story I'd like to tell about it now? So I've never given that assignment before, totally new assignment. But I would suggest to you that the story you tell about the adversity you've had in your life will profoundly determine your behavior now.
Right. Yes, because people define themselves. It's like when someone gets, like someone goes to see a doctor and they're diagnosed as schizophrenic or something. That label gives them permission, and it's a limiting fixed state that they suddenly exist in that they can't go beyond. What I love about this is because a traumatic emotional event can happen in someone's life, and just with this simple exercise, write the story. What happened? What was so traumatic? How is this? And then answer, how is this still impacting you? How do you, and then, think about that. How has it affected your life? How is it still impacting you today? What is it making you feel? Is it changing the way you interact with other people? And then how do you want this story to impact yourself?
Yep.
What do you want the story to do for you? And what do you want, and so then what is the story you want to tell? Can you change that story? Because you can change the story. Again, how people define themselves often has huge implications of what they think they're capable of. The only difference between people that are accomplishing the things you want to accomplish and those that don't accomplish that and try and fail really often comes down to the stories they tell themselves. Again, it comes back to this fixed mind state versus growth. There's people who are just, I'm not there yet. I need to keep on it. I need to keep working on it. And there's people that are like, I never can. I'm just this. I'm just that. Oh, my family this. Oh, my family that, right? These stories that they tell themselves that keep them trapped. And it's a self-sabotaging, self-limiting belief that prevents people from achieving their true potential. And it's all the stories you play in your head. And the reality is, and sorry, I'm going on a riff here, but I love this because a dog is just a dog. It will only ever do the 5 to 10 things a dog does, right? Unless a human comes and trains it to, jump rope, whatever. But generally speaking, the animals only do these 5 or 10 things. Humans can do anything we want. All it takes is focus, time, and attention. Anything. You can learn to walk on your hands. You can learn to climb a rope with no hands. You can learn to do ballet, to tap dance, figure out how to fly, figure out how to put a person on the moon, figure out how to make a rocket ship land on its own, figure out how to make electric vehicles, make a car drive itself, figure out how to make a phone where I can talk here. Like we're in totally separate locations. Not only are we communicating in real time, we're recording it, and people will be able to listen to this for the rest of our civilization. That's so phenomenal. So humans can accomplish anything they want. And so often the stories they tell themselves about their lives, their past, it determines their future. But really, you have this moment and every moment moving forward. And you could decide today to change and go in a new direction. And there's nothing holding you back other than yourself.
Exactly. There you go. Great closing. Yeah. Way to go.
So well said. No, so well said.
Hey, you want a job?
So now I guess for you, what do you see as the future trends of your industry?
Future trends of the industry are that, it's an industry where, I believe there's like the 20-80 rule in the coaching world. A lot of people become coaches. Not a lot of them are outstanding coaches.
Right.
And so what I see is a greater divide between the outstanding coaches and the not as outstanding coaches. So that's one thing I see for sure. The other thing I see is a movement away from accountability-based coaching towards really helping people understand how their thinking plays a role in their results and their outcomes. So I see that happening too. And I see an industry where it's going to be, you talked about the world is competitive. I see an industry that leads, that is on the leading edge of collaboration as opposed to competition. So I see that happening too over time.
So let's go over those 3. So you said more great coaches emerging. And kind of being better known through the power of being able to leverage themselves, right, with technology.
Right. So a greater divide between the phenomenal coaches and the rest. So few great ones will show up more and more. Like that.
Right. And then I was really intrigued by the other one. You said step away from accountability-based coaching.
Yeah. So here's my philosophy. I feel like accountability-based coaching is unethical at best and detrimental at worst. So why? Let's pretend I'm coaching you and you come to me because you're struggling with something, whatever that something is.
Right.
And normally when someone is struggling with something, how do they feel?
They don't feel good.
They don't feel good. And so they may have a goal that they just can't seem to achieve. And so they hire a coach, and they figure that coach is going to help them achieve the thing that they were unable to achieve on their own. So now we create an accountability model. And I say to you, Daryl, here's what we're going to agree. We're going to create a plan, and I'm going to hold you accountable to all the bits and pieces in order for you to achieve your goal. So week 1 is going well. Week 2, week 3, week 4, you don't do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So now how do you feel?
Right. Well, now you're falling behind.
Now you're falling behind. So let's just pretend it works, right? So if it works and I hold you accountable and you get your stuff done, what I've done is I've created a relationship where you're dependent on me.
Right.
That's unethical. But if it doesn't work, now not only do you feel bad because you still aren't reaching your goals, but you've paid for it, and you feel a little bit uncomfortable because you're working with me and I'm beating you over the head because you aren't doing your stuff. So what I've done is I've taken your problem and I've made it worse.
Right.
So that's detrimental. That's harmful.
And so instead, it's just about helping people understand. And I guess it's focused on the growth. It's focusing on taking whatever time it needs to take. Because oftentimes...
Well, look, my philosophy is you're an adult. You're responsible. You don't have to be accountable to me. My question is, what's preventing you from being accountable to you? Right? And so that's the work I want to do with you, is really identify what's getting in your way and move it out of the way. And the moment that stuff is out of the way, people soar. A lot of people I coach, not only do they soar, they look different, they walk different, they smile more, and people will see them in the street and they say, what's up with you? Did you get a haircut? Like, did you get a makeover or something? Did you get a new wardrobe? You just look so different, because they feel different from the inside. Right. And so when someone feels different, just like that Olympic athlete who shows up at the starting line saying, I'm going to win.
Yep.
Right? That's not a doing exercise.
Yep. It's a state of being.
It's a state of being. And so coaching is going to move more and more into addressing states of being as opposed to managing tasks and activities.
That's such a that's quotable right there. That's a writer downer, folks. That's a writer downer.
Writer downer.
Coaching is going to move into. So wait, say it again. Coaching. Good thing we were recording, but it's about coaching is going to be more about states of being versus managing tasks and actions and deadlines.
That's right. There you go.
Right. Yeah. It's about state of being. Yeah, I think that's great. I'm so big into like morning routines just because of that, the state of being. I'm really right now I'm kind of on and off because there's the CrossFit Open is happening, but once it's done, I'm just going to be like very militaristic because the state of being is so important. Tony Robbins is big into that too. He does all sorts of, I don't want to say crazy because it's not crazy, but he goes to extremes others wouldn't to make sure he gets into certain states of being, having cold showers and baths and things like that because it shocks the system into a state of being.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's so well put. Was there anything I should have asked you, Kim, that I didn't ask you? This has been such a great call. I really think people will want to listen to this once or twice and definitely make sure they have their paper and pen out and make sure you follow all the questions at the end, what you need to do, what you need to delegate, all that sort of stuff. But Kim, was there anything that I should have asked you about that I didn't ask you about?
Gosh, we could talk for another hour about that.
Easily.
But for now, you know what? This is a good starting point, and happy to talk to anybody who's interested in sending in those questions or learning more or has a struggle and they say, well, what do I do?
Right.
So I'm happy to talk to anybody who's in that place and wants to talk about their state of being instead of their state of doing.
Yeah, that's excellent. So anyone that's interested, please just reach out to Kim, Kim, at frameofmindcoaching.com. She will answer your questions. She'll pass you on to someone that can help you and try take a poke around at your problem. No risk, of course, I'm sure up front, and just to help you out and see if there's something simple to fix or maybe you do need more help. And that's it. I strongly encourage anyone this call has resonated with to take action, because if you don't, keep doing what you've always got or keep doing what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. So
well, let's change that. If you keep thinking what you've always thought, you'll keep getting what you always got. How's that?
I'm glad we're neighbors.
Yes.
All right, Kim. Well, thank you so much. I really genuinely appreciate you and your time today and just for sharing with our listeners. I know people are going to benefit from this call, and I just appreciate you helping me on my mission to help make a difference in this world.
My pleasure. One more thing, though. When you start having kids, let me know.
Well, the first one we're expecting to get going before Christmas. So,
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, keep me posted.
okay, we'll do.
All right. Take care.
You've reached the end of our interview. Now, first, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate and respect you more than you'll ever know. And now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, what 3 lessons did you just learn? What 3 aha moments just jumped out at you? Second, what can you implement for yourself and your business in the next 24 hours? Third, what can you give to someone else to help you with, or give to them to just do it for you? Whatever it is, remember taking action is the secret sauce to results. Now, if you think this interview would be helpful for a friend, please give them a link to it. It'll help them and it'll help me too. I'd also like to invite you to help me find out more about the challenges you're facing, your dreams, your goals, and how I can help you overcome what's holding you back. We both do better when we know better, and your success is my success. So please reach out and interact. You can visit our website, bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, where I'm from and where I'm living. You're welcome to also try out one of our paid programs. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much every other social media channel you can think of. You should also subscribe to the podcast, and if you're enjoying them, please leave us a nice review. It really helps. That's all for now. Once again, thank you. Take care of yourself, and remember, the world needs the best business you can build. And I believe in you.